Um, late last week on Thursday, we were contacted, and this is the only contact that we have had by MadRep, our regional economic entity, telling us that in addition to the Foxconn project in southeastern Wisconsin, that they were also interested in a site in the Madison, Dane County area. We were told that as a city government, it would be advisable for us to lay forward any possible sites for consideration. Principally, Foxconn is looking for a greenfield site. That's our understanding. We have not been contacted by them. We have not been contacted by the state of Wisconsin. Again, our only contact has been from MadRep. We suggested a couple of sites. One of them that we suggested that they look at, despite the fact that it does not meet their initial requests, is the Oscar Mayer site. We did so with the approval of Kraft Heinz. And we did it with knowledge that the Reich Company has an option on the property. We think this is part of the need to rethink the location of jobs and the consumption of farmland. When you've got an industrial site within a stone's throw of an airport, on a rail line, with easy access to an interstate highway, where it has more than adequate sources of power and water, when it is located on public transit lines, we think that's the kind of site that ought to be considered. That's all that has happened. Nothing more, nothing less. And let me add to that, that isn't to say that we think it would be easy to reach an agreement. The present acts of Governor Walker and the legislation being contemplated by the Assembly and the Senate makes it very challenging to put together a viable economic proposal. First of all, we have absolutely no intention in any location to waive any environmental regulations. Secondly, we are not at all interested in participating in a race to the bottom in regards to competing with financial incentives that are not viable for this community. Frankly, the American economy is rigged against ordinary people, and part of the problem is disproportionate tax cuts, tax breaks, tax gifts to wealthy corporations, which, as in the instance of what Bobby Jindal did in Louisiana with the petrochemical industry, destroys more jobs than they create. Are we interested in a Foxconn facility in Madison? Yes, we are. Are we going to lower any of our standards, be they economic or environmental? No, we are not. Are there any questions?
You mentioned you were looking at multiple sites. What were the other ones?
I can't disclose those at this time.
What would this facility be for? That's a little unclear. We've heard.
That's unclear to us too. We have not had any communication from any state agency or from Foxconn.
You sound unhappy about that the state has not contacted you
I'm
particularly.
just being serious.
Would you expect?
I sounded serious.
Would you expect that the state would be in touch with you?
I don't know what to expect from state government under a Walker administration. And you'd have to ask them why we weren't invited to the White House with President Trump. I said that with a straight face.
Do you think that it's realistic to consider the Oscar Mayer site in light of all the potential problems there?
I don't know what the potential problems are.
As far as environmental issues, then
I'm just saying we wouldn't waive any environmental standards. I don't think there's environmental problems there, but we wouldn't waive any environmental standards. That's all.
You had mentioned that providing these incentives is a race to the bottom. Is that a signal to Foxconn that just you don't want them here?
No, not at all. Not at all. I think you ought to go. Let me refer everyone to the Kauffman Foundation and the research that it has done in regards to massive giveaways. And let me point out, the work we've done with TIF is different because we more than recapture the tax increment which goes to the developer, and we always have the land and the development as security. But if you look at the research done by the Kauffman Foundation and others, if you look at the standards in regards to the amount of subsidization per employee, if you look at the average, not the average, that's the point, the median salary of the employees, those are all identifiable standards that can be used in evaluating these kinds of proposals. I'm not an expert at it. I would say, with what I know about the other proposal, somewhere between 600 million and 1.2 million is probably the outer range that ought to be seriously considered. We want good, well-paying jobs here. And let's keep in mind that by today's standards, family of four with a breadwinner at about $50,000 a year is within the range of housing subsidization. We don't need enormous employers adding to the workforce, a workforce that is not going to be able to sufficiently cover its health insurance, sufficiently cover its housing costs, sufficiently cover its food costs. Madison is in a unique position. We've developed an economy here where, while we will work with employers, we will work with companies to create a viable economy, we are not in a position where we have to, in effect, give away the farm. We're not in a position where we have to create subsidizations that are so enormous that, again, the per capita cost for the job creation or the cost measured against the salary for the employee is actually a loser for the people who make up our community. And again, I'll repeat, basically in this country, the economy is rigged against ordinary people. This is one manner in which it's a tragedy, and we're not going to participate in it. We will, as we have in the past, and we will continue to make reasonable agreements that are of benefit to the employer, the developer, and the city. And we've demonstrated our capability of doing that. Just step out the door here and look around.
Mayor, even though you said you hadn't been contacted by Foxconn, has the group you've been in touch with given you an indication of how many jobs this facility would house?
I've been told initially they're talking around 600.
Just to be clear on the southeastern Wisconsin Foxconn facility, this incentive package that the legislature is considering, they should reject that at the $3 billion number, in your view?
In my view, when you take the payroll, the number of jobs that are created, this is so over the top. And I'm fearful that if that becomes the standard for job creation in Wisconsin, the whole state will suffer, not just Madison and Dane County, but Green Bay, La Crosse, Superior. There's people joking about how all these people in Illinois, first you got to start with the beginning of it, which is Illinois lost. The facility's not in Illinois. And then all these Illinois residents will cross the border and get great jobs. Well, the point is how good or bad the jobs are has to be measured against the fact that those folks in Illinois aren't going to be paying part of the $3 billion.
What would be a deal that you would want to work with, Mayor Soglin? Perfect scenario here if Foxconn came in.
Well, we'd have to know what the nature of their investment is. We'd obviously consider a TIF, and there you have it. I mean, we could be able to create a TIF district. Matt, is there anything you want to add here?
Do you know how this would fit in with that Oscar Mayer strategic committee that was developed a little while ago?
I think what we'd have to do is bring the proposal to them. And again, this is so hypothetical. This is not the kind of site that they were requesting. They were requesting a greenfield, but our expertise in economic development and our expertise on land use says putting in a facility that employs that many people right in the heart of all these resources, all those roads, the rail, the airport, the interstate, the homes, that makes sense rather than chewing up, I don't know, 40, 80, 100 acres of farmland.
You say you can't tell us
And
what-
let me say, we've been in this position in the past. On the one hand, we are right now working on two very viable projects, one involving exact sciences and the other one involving the corner of Gammon Road and Mineral Point. But at the same time, when Rayovac Spectrum was looking to move from its old site, and they wanted to entice us into a bidding war with Middleton, we refused to participate.
You said you can't name the other sites, but could you tell us if any of them are greenfields?
They are greenfields on the edge of the city, within the city. Correct, Matt?
Is it one other site or two other sites?
Two other sites.
Different locations?
Yes.
And why can't you tell us?
Are we under any obligation?
Well, I mean, it's the requested confidentiality.
Yeah.
So.
And the only reason I'm mentioning Oscar Mayer is because somehow, look, I don't know where these leaks are coming from. We were asked to honor this process for a couple of weeks in confidence. We have, at least up until now, when our hand was forced by the State Journal article this morning. You know, we attempt to respect the requests from our private partners for at least opportunities for them to make various announcements. We just went through that with the Livesey site at Gammon Road and Mineral Point. Some of you had asked, who's it going to be? Who's it going to be? We said, hey, there's the developer, there's the user of the site. We respect their participation. They'll tell you, and that's what happened.
You had said the $600 million to $1.2 billion incentive package is more in line with the southeastern Wisconsin.
That's more in line with national standards as to how much per job.
In Madison or
National.
For the Racine site, right?
Yeah, for the Racine, I'm talking the Racine site.
I
With-
thought you said 600 million to 2 billion, but you said
6 to
600 million
1.2. 600 million to 1.2. And I'm probably being far too generous with the 1.2.
Can I ask you, are you still contemplating running for governor, and what's your timeline for making that decision?
I'll let you know after Labor Day. Anything else?
Mayor, how surprised are you that you got this call even?
I was surprised when I first got the call on Thursday. You know, I was saying, where did that come from, and why, with all the discussion about Kenosha and southeastern Wisconsin, why wasn't this brought out? But you know, most of the people who, from a public standpoint, are working on this don't call me very often.
So it was a phone call versus an email?
It was a phone call from MadRep.
And how long was the phone call?
I don't recall. I was traveling. I was in Washington that day. It was 5-10 minutes.
What were you doing in Washington?
What was I doing in Washington? I was watching the Brewers in the no. Actually, the Brewers were in Washington, but I had met with, among other things, I'd met with ATF to discuss some issues involving firearms and guns because of the shooting incidents we've had. And
Get any guidance?
a couple of things, if you want to change subjects. First, they've got a new appointee for this region, somebody who knows the area from Minneapolis to Chicago quite well, and he will be contacting our police department. Secondly, there's a piece of equipment, Naven it's called. It's a machine that, just like tracing fingerprints or bullets, can identify casings. So when you've had a situation where shots have been fired and there's no identification, but all you've got is the casings, these machines can read them and then compare them and identify if they've been similar casings have existed elsewhere. There's 2 machines in Wisconsin. Both of them are in Milwaukee. And one
The ATF machines?
One, I believe, is an ATF machine, and one is a Department of Justice machine. And so the question is, can we get some speedy results from these machines based in Milwaukee?
Aren't these very expensive?
They are very expensive machines. Yes.
So you're not talking about purchasing any, just using?
No, we need access. And certain instances, we need the identification of the casings expedited.
Have you asked Schimmel about that?
Well, what I want to do is I want to make the connection between ATF and our police department, which I did. They can take it from there.
What's the response been to your request for the gun give back?
Not much so far, nothing.
Nothing at all?
No.
Is that surprising?
I don't know.
Do you know if, the placemaking initiative, if that's gonna be coming before the council at some point?
I hope it'll be in the council within the next month. We're drafting up a resolution to adopt it. We will have that done probably by early next week. We'll send it to the Finance Committee and to the council after we circulate it among council members to see if we can get some co-sponsors. All right, are we good? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.